Or we can do what Rogan does. Are we up? Are we up? Oh, yeah. Oh, we're up.
Yeah.
All right. First inaugural podcast of Why Men Matter. So today I have Dana Johnson. Drove all the way out here from Alberta. We're broadcasting from BC, so it's a big deal that we've got him here today, and I'm pretty excited to launch something very special and a topic of conversation to get some good talks out there and some good conversations, some stories from some awesome people. So thank you for being here on the first inaugural launch of Why Men Matter, and
thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. And yeah, we've known each other for 15, 20 years, and it's good to have a good kickoff with a good friend. So I appreciate it. Why don't you give a bit of a background, talk about like where you're from, where you're born, where you grew up, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I was born in a place called Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, back in the Stone Age, back in the late 60s. Just, I guess, when the Vietnam War kicked off, what have you. So around that era, so I tell people that, they just think that, again, that was back in the Stone Age. So I don't say that too much anymore. But anyway, yeah, I was born there. Born and raised there until I was 19, 20 years old. And then I moved to Ontario when I joined the military, and did a few years in Ontario. And then I moved to Alberta back in the late 1991, and been there ever since. Yeah.
And then, so growing up in Nova Scotia, what was growing up like on the East Coast and being a maritimer?
Well, I grew up on a farm. I wasn't born and raised on the farm type of thing. I was I was born in Lunenburg, but which is an old fishing village. It's renowned for building of the tall ships. So if you know, if you've ever heard of the Blue Nose, which is the
famous one on the dime.
There's the one on the dime. That's the Blue Nose 2. But it was a ship. It was very well known for a shipbuilding community. My dad actually sailed on 2 ships that were actually built there. The Blue Nose 2 was one of them, and he crewed that ship for about 3 years, I believe it was. And then there was another one called the Bounty, which was a replica of the HMS Bounty that was around during the 1700s. It was famous for going to get the breadfruit plants in Tahiti many years ago. So they rebuilt this ship called the Bounty, a replica that they used in a movie that was produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer for the movie called Mutiny on the Bounty. And in 1962, I think it was. So my dad crewed the Bounty, and he was actually in that movie.
Oh, cool.
So that was what Lunenburg was well known for. But again, prior to that, it was pretty much a fishing village type of thing. But I lived around that area of Nova Scotia until I was 6, and then I moved to another small farming town called Goshen, which is outside of a more well-known town called Antigonish. So that's where St. FX University is and what have you. So I was there from 6 years old until I was about 20 years old, 1920, and then I moved to Ontario, and the rest is history.
And then you moved to Ontario, and then shortly after that you joined the military, the Canadian Armed Forces.
Canadian Armed Forces,
And then maybe describe a little bit about the Canadian Armed Forces. Like, so you joined, because the process is a little bit different now than it was back then, but you join, and then you do your basic training, you choose your trade.
That's right.
Kind of go through that. So maybe talk about the process of the joining and then going through.
Yeah. So most of my friends, when I graduated from high school, they wanted to, go to university or somewhere into the trades. I decided I wanted to go into the military. I was a very adventurous guy. My dad had served in the Navy, in the Canadian Navy years ago. So there was some military blood in my family. And, I wanted to be an infantryman. I wanted to be an infantryman. And the little knowledge that I had about it sounded quite appealing and very intriguing, and sounded like a lot of adventure. So I looked into it, and I I went to the recruiting center, local recruiting center, went through the process of, going through the health check and all that stuff, the aptitude and what have you.
Background, all that.
And I mean, I'm not trying to insult anybody in the infantry and the combat role, but they say that those with I guess the lowest IQ are the guys that end up going to the infantry or, the armored division or something, or the artillery. Well, that's not necessarily true. Some actually most brilliant minds that I've ever met actually were infantry guys. Yeah. And their claim to fame was being able to understand how to stay alive, right? In the heat of battle. So yeah, I mean, I met some really, really interesting characters in the military, but I went to recruit training in Cornwallis, Nova Scotia. And I left that. That was 2.5 months, 3 months, and I went to what they call RCR Battle School. So RCR means Royal Canadian Regiment, in the Battle School, and that was in Petawawa, Ontario. And I was there for I think 4.5 months. I graduated from that. And then I went to I was posted in London, Ontario at the time, which is the 1st Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment. They've since moved years ago from London, and they got relocated back to Petawawa. And I had done a tour over in Cyprus with the UN, which was interesting. That was 6 months there. That was a peacekeeping? Peacekeeping, yeah. It was, it was the United Nations peacekeeping mission. I've got mixed feelings about that. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. When you come out of that, you realize it's more like a political thing than it was, an actual peacekeeping mission.
So you get your orders and then what the overall mission would be, and then while performing the duties and the tasks day in, day out, and you find out that it's something different. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was, pardon me, we're on this thing called the Green Line, which is that's the line that separates the Turkish and the Greek side, right? The Turkish military, Greek military, and you have your city companies and you have your rural companies. So you do 3 months in the rural areas, so like way out in the boonies, like out in the outskirts, way outside of the city. You do a 3-month tour there in different sort of habitats, if you want to call them that, outposts, OPs. And after that, then we came back into the city and we stayed around a place called Leidra Palace. It used to be a 5-star hotel prior to the war that had happened there, which initiated the whole reason for UN peacekeepers being there to begin with. So, but I just found it was just very. I don't want to say waste of time, but definitely, in my opinion, is just kind of senseless. I mean, It was an old war when we were there. The war had already been over with years ago. So we were just trying to figure out, why we're there, and we're just sort of marking time and just filling positions and what have you. But I don't think the UN is there anymore. I think quite a few years ago they pulled out type of thing because there's really no point of being there. So, but at the end of my tour. There's myself and quite a number of other guys that were in the battalion. We put it back then it was called putting in your memo. So you write up these memos and you wanted to send them off to your superiors. You had to go through the chain of command through your section 2 IC, your IC, and then you're into the officers. And then the memos that we put in is that I personally wanted to go and get my jump wings for for jumping, because ultimately I wanted to go to the Canadian Airborne Regiment. So after literally 5 memos, I ended up getting some feedback, and they said as soon as you get repatriated back to Canada, you're going to go on your jump course, which was at the time was in Edmonton. Okay. Edmonton, Alberta, and with literally, I think it was a month after I got back from Cyprus, we had some leave just to go and relax, sort of, I went back to Nova Scotia to visit my parents, and then came back to London, Ontario, and they shipped me out, myself and a whole bunch of my good fellow infantry guys that were in my unit. We went up to Edmonton and we did a 2.5 week course there. Got my jump wings. Yeah. Got back to London, and then they said, "You're going to the airborne, man. You're going to the commandos." And I was like, "Wow,
just like that. So
you got your jump wings, you went through all the paratrooper training, and then I guess the commandos would be classified as a kind of a special forces or like a specialty group.
It's considered, in some eyes, is considered a special forces unit. Some people call it just it's airborne infantry. Yeah. That's what a lot of them call it. Some refer to it as a special forces group. Because when they consider the word commando, they look at the commando. They go, commandos are special forces.
Yeah,
and it is the Canadian Airborne Regiment 3 Commando, which is the unit I went into. Yeah. So you can call it whatever way you want. But the training as a paratrooper, you learn that when you get to the regiment. You have to qualify first. Back then, you had to qualify just to get your wings first. Like you literally had to jump out of airplanes first, get the wings, and then when you ended up becoming a member of the Airborne, that's when all of your indoctrination training happens. And then they start putting you on these courses, and they start taking you through
what kind of indoctrination courses would you?
Well, just PT tests, to see how good your conditioning was. I mean, just because you got there doesn't mean that you're going to be staying there. I mean, if you really didn't cut the mustard, you probably get RTU'd, returned back to your original unit.
Yeah.
So we knew that going into it, and so we had to be in shape.
Yeah.
We had to be in shape.
What was the hardest part of all of those different levels of training?
Some of the running was a lot of running, a lot of running, rucksack marches and things like that. I mean, I did pretty well through it. I was ready for it. A lot of guys weren't. They got to the Airborne and they were kind of second guessing, why did I come here type of thing. Some of the courses were tough that you had to go through, like all weather condition training. It was tough, but you know what? The guys in the commandos, though, like the guys in our unit, were fantastic. So like some of the, master corporals and the sergeants that were there, they've been there for years. They were really supportive. They really, they really worked hard to make you work hard so that you can succeed in a type of thing. And
so there was definitely sounds like a good support system, but then also a greater sense of brotherhood and teamwork.
100%. Well, I mean, the Airborne Regiment. The way that those units work on the Airborne, you work in a smaller group.
Yeah.
So when you're in an infantry group, you have your section, your platoon, and then you have your company, right?
Yeah.
You do work in your sections, but in infantry, it's more at the platoon level, where in the Airborne Regiment, it was like you would work in small groups of like 4 guys, right? Because the nature of a commando is basically, it's more reconnaissance, what have you, and getting in and getting intel, enemy forces type of thing, and then reporting back. It's not like we're like in the infantry. It's like you're front line, like you're literally in the trenches. You're doing advanced contact up to the enemy force, and you're doing it at a larger scale. Where in the Airborne Regiment is more infiltrating, getting in behind enemy lines, gathering intel. If you're compromised, then obviously you have to get into a firefight type of thing, but the idea is just to get in and get a ton of information, and how you're inserted obviously is through the air, or rappelling out of helicopters and things like that, which we did. But that was the exciting part of it. It's not just the being in the bush, camouflaged up and trying to get intel. It's like literally, how do you get there? Jumping in and at night type of thing, and you would go in again, like you would work and at the platoon level and what have you, or the company level, but then you would be divided up into smaller groups, and the groups would be divided up depending on the necessity of the op.
Yeah.
Right.
Skill set.
Right. Like if you were, exactly. So, because everybody has a certain specific, field of, one guy's a machine gunner, rifleman, some guys are grenadiers, some guys are, like there's a multi. Some guys are recce, so they would send in a recce platoon to get all the intel and type of thing, and so it's multifaceted. It really is, and it's exciting because then you can also cross train into different areas within the unit itself.
Yeah, broaden your skill set.
Yeah, if you wanted to become a sniper, you could go through the training, and they say, okay, you have to go to the range and see how well you qualify on the range, and if you're if you have your basics down and you have good groupings, and they say, okay, we recommend that guy to go on a sniper course, but you also have to have a certain amount of time in, and to be at a certain level, like a certain rank, to become a sniper.
Okay.
And then you have to be, if you want to become like a pathfinder, where pathfinders, they're the guys that sort of develop. They're the ones who, how can I say it? They're the ones who establish the drop zone for the rest of the paratroopers. So, so they jump from high altitudes, halo jumps. They'll come in and they'll be there for 3 or 4 days before the rest of the troops show up. And it was a fascinating experience for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't go as far as, the sniper in it or the pathfinder. Had I stuck in, I would have, but the regiment itself seemed to be having some issues.
Yeah.
In its sort of, in its later years type of thing. And ultimately the regiment ended up being disbanded, and it was terrible. So
that whole situation in Somalia, which ruined a lot of people's careers, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, the Somalia affair was awful. I actually left the military prior to that happening. I became very disillusioned, not so much with the regiment itself. I really enjoyed my time there. I wasn't there for very long, but I enjoyed my time there and the guys that were there. But I just, I'm the son of a politician, and I saw things occurring and sort of on their way to things that just weren't really conducive to a benefit of in the military.
How so? Like,
well, it was during the Decade of Darkness. I mean, they call it the Decade of Darkness when Chrétien was in, and prior to him it was Mulroney, and they really started cutting back on funding for the Canadian Armed Forces. In fact, I remember, in the regiment, you had to stay what they call current. So every so often you had to get on the plane, throw a parachute on, and go do a jump just to stay current. And they were canceling jumps left, right, and center because they just didn't have the funding to pay for the gas to put it in the Hercs, the C-130s.
Yeah.
So, you're sitting there, all ready to go. It's just, jumps canceled, go polish your boots, or go clean your weapon. It's like, well, I just finished cleaning it like an hour ago. We'll go do it again. It was a lot of hurry up and wait. As a young paratrooper, you're full of piss and vinegar, right? So you if you're looking for action, and I know that sounds really weird to a lot of people. It's like, well, why would you be like chomping at the bit to
train
get,
for?
like why would you want to get into war? Like, why would you want to get into battle? It's like, well, you're a young guy, you're full of testosterone and adventure and what have you. And
it's like a kid with a driver's license and not allowed to drive.
There you go. and that's sort of how I felt.
Yeah.
Was that, if I'm gonna go from, basic training to an infantry unit to, a commando unit, I want to get out there and do what I'm trained to do. And it just wasn't happening. It was deteriorating. And then when the first Gulf War happened, I remember us sitting in we called the TV lounge, or the general lounge, with everybody on the couches and everything. We're watching the TV, and we're watching how the U.S. Marines are starting to come, into Iraq. And, you can say what you want about Saddam Hussein, and we've learned a lot about him since that had all happened. But I won't go down that rabbit hole right now, because there's a lot to it. But the more you know, as you get older, right, you realize, okay, so who was bad, who was good.
Those lines are getting blurred.
Well, yeah, exactly. So much information comes out after the fact, but we're watching the Americans going in there, and and if there was any unit in the Canadian military that was like engineered specifically and ready to go and do that type of work, it would be the Canadian Airborne Regiment. And all we found out was, you're not going anywhere. Like, we're not sending you, you're not going to go to Iraq. You're not, and I said, well, we're NATO, we're part of the NATO forces, but no, we're not going to, no, you're going to sit there and you're going to eat, all dressed Doritos and drink Coca-Colas and just sit and watch how the Americans are going to go into Iraq and do their thing.
Yeah.
And so I started just sort of like questioning, you know, like, why am I here? Like, what are we doing here? Maybe I wasn't as patient as, you know, other guys in the unit, but regardless, I mean, that's what, like you said, we were trained to do that. Instead, our unit decided, our commanding officer in his infinite wisdom decided that we're going to go do, I guess, a team building winter operation up at the Chilkoot Trail up in Alaska during the winter. Yeah. And they tell you that's probably not a good idea to do in the wintertime. And they proved it, because we ended up getting there and we ended up getting abandoned on top of this mountain during a snowstorm. We were up there for 3 days, no food, no water, you know, and yeah, and we ended up having to turn around and come right back the same way we came in. And it was just, again, it was after that, I was just like, you know, if this is what this is all about, then I'm done.
Yeah.
I've had enough.
Yeah. You get disenfranchised with what's going on.
That's right. Yeah. Not to mention, as I said, the government wasn't spending money on us and really just wasn't pushing us to our full potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there were 40 guys in my unit left the same summer that I did. Yeah. Like just in my one, in the commando I was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that might give you an idea of just how the morale was. It was just terrible.
What was the head count around that time, like total head count of commandos and paratroopers?
In my commando, or all the commandos?
All the commandos.
Well, there's 3 commandos, plus you have your service group, your service commando guys. They're like, they drop in equipment, food, whatever, you know, supplies and whatever. But if you're talking about like the riflemen, like the guys that hold the rifles, or the guys with the weaponry, there's 3 commandos, and I believe in each commando there was about, I'm going to say probably 150 guys per commando. Yeah, because you got 3 platoons in each one, and each platoon had about, well, my math is terrible. So there's three platoons in each commando, and then you had your recce platoons. You had your wasn't so much recce there, but it was more of the Pathfinders, and then you had your special groups. You had your sniper groups, and so yeah, but in our group alone, there's 40 guys. 40 guys left, 3 commando the same summer I did.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was very telling. It was very telling. In fact, I ran into some guys in Ottawa after the fact, because I was working as a bouncer at a bar in Elmer, Quebec, shortly after I had left. I was living in Hull, Quebec, as well, with another friend of mine who had also left the commandos prior to me leaving, like 3 months before I quit. And we ran into other guys, and I couldn't believe how many guys. I wasn't aware that there had been like 40 men had left, including myself.
So everybody, sounds like everybody kind of kept that to themselves.
Yeah, until we were out, until everybody was out, and then we run into them on the street somewhere in Ottawa or wherever we were. Yeah. And I was like, hey man, like, wow, I didn't know you left. And yeah, man, I left like 4 months ago. Yeah. I'm like, well, I didn't know where you were. I'm like, yeah, man, like 40 guys. It was pretty bad. Wow. The Somalia affair, the whole thing that kicked off, that was in '93 after I get out. I'd been on Sibby Street for about a year, and I had run into another friend of mine, a guy by the name of Steve Teskey. And Steve Teskey was actually my tent partner when I was in Chilkoot Trail. So, we get to know each other better. And he was on embarkation leave, so he was getting some leave in before he was going to take off to Somalia. And when I ran into I think it was the Calgary airport, I ran into him, and he had said that they were doing a pre-deployment embarkation or disembarkation leave, whatever the term is, because they're going to go to Somalia. And truth be known, I actually tried to get back in the Canadian military because there was going to be a deployment. I didn't know how that was all going to play out. Yeah. But I had went to the recruiting office in Calgary, the Harry Hayes building, and I said, what are the chances of me getting back in the military? I said, I'd only been out for a year.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a year. It was like 10 months. And they said, well, if you wanted to get back into the same unit you left, you're going to have to go through the process of going back to an infantry unit first. So you don't have to go through the basic training.
Yeah.
You would just have to go back to your infantry unit, go through your memorandums again, and try to get back into the airborne regiment. But by that time, you know, they would have been deployed to Somalia right away anyway. But what I found very interesting was the recruiter was saying to me that the chances of me getting back in the airborne was going to be slim to none because of other circumstances, and they wouldn't elaborate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And this is prior to Somalia even happening.
Was that from like previous operations, or because you left and like,
no,
was there like a mark on your record? Or?
No, it had nothing to do with that. I mean, I left with an honorable discharge. What it was there was plans in the making that they were going to basically dissolve the Canadian Airborne Regiment completely.
Yeah.
That's before all of the hazing videos came out. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but they were.
Yeah, I remember some of the. Yeah, some of those.
Pretty damning video.
Yeah, that was almost like an excuse to pull the plug quicker than planned.
Yeah, and I mean, what we saw in video was very typical of hazing. It really showed the nasty side of a bunch of young guys in a commando unit under the influence of alcohol and, you know, doing some pretty crazy stuff. But this was nothing new. I mean, militaries have been doing this and things like this, far worse things than this, for generations. So this isn't new to the Canadian military. It just so happens that somebody leaked a video of this happening and it got out to the media, and next thing, well, the rest is history, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the Somalia, the event that happened in Somalia, and I knew the guys that were involved with that. They were in 2 Commando. It was a bad situation, and I'm not going to defend them, but neither am I going to, chastise them for what had happened. It's a really bad circumstance. A lot of the soldiers that went over to Somalia and to other tropical countries, or countries that where people can be susceptible to certain viruses or whatever, they were put on a drug called mefloquine. And I, fortunately for me, before I went to Cyprus, I did not take mefloquine, but a lot of my friends did, a lot of my buddies did, and to this day, mefloquine it gives them a brain injury. Yeah.
So like a psychosis kind of thing.
Well, sort of psychosis, but literally it gives them a physical brain injury. It's their back of their head type of thing. And there's a doctor, a military doctor, he came out and he made it very clear. He said that that this is a thing, and lawsuits.
And that drug likely could have been a contributing factor to the circumstances in Somalia.
Correct. Yeah. It did. They proved it. They said that mefloquine made people it made them snap and just go crazy. So the jury's still out on that one, even though they say no, it's cut and dry that mefloquine. Some people say it has nothing to do with what happened over in Somalia. Yeah. The other side is saying it has absolutely 100% everything to do with what happened in Somalia. Yeah. So I followed that for years and watched.
I would imagine.
And saw how my
brotherhood is affected. So
yeah, like one of the guys, he ended up trying to commit suicide. Tried to off himself. One of the guys that was involved with that event, the main guy that was involved with that event, he over time. It was a combination of the drug itself, which gave him a permanent brain injury, plus the fact that, his name was all over the media, whatever. He ended up trying to, off himself, and wasn't successful, but it basically turned him into a vegetable, and now he wears a diaper for the rest of his life. It's an ugly situation. So, Anyway, that whole Somalia affair is that would basically was the icing on the cake, and it was within a year and a half after that the regiment was disbanded.
Yeah,
and I watched that whole thing happen, and it was a real shame to see full grown men crying on the parade square. Like it was bad to see. And then after that, all the jumpers from the different commandos went back to their respective infantry units, but what they did is they created this one. It was jump company, basically. So you get to wear a maroon beret, but you wear the cap badge of your infantry unit. You don't wear the airborne cap badge anymore.
Because that's no more.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, it was CSOR was introduced, the Canadian Special Operations Regiment. And one of my good friends in the military, his name's Tom Werner, he and I, we were in one RCR together in London. We went on a jump course together. We got to the airborne together. He stayed in. I had left, and he ended up becoming the regimental sergeant major for CSOR. Yeah, so it was pretty impressive. And he's since retired about 5 years ago. Yeah. So he's a great guy, very knowledgeable. Obviously, like hardcore soldier. Everything. So the soldiering hasn't left me, and neither has the memories of the guys that that had a major impact in my life in the military.
So what are some like guiding principles and like some core values that you've carried with you since going through the military and leaving?
You mean transitioning from military life to civilian life?
Like just some of those things, some of the lessons you've learned, or just some of those guiding values that you've kind of developed through that.
Well, sticking to your guns. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Have some morals about your life, type of thing. Try to find some humanity in your soul. Mm-hmm. Know the difference between soldiering and civilianing, if that's even a term.
Yep,
because there's a major difference between the two. Helping out when you can.
Yeah.
As I said, sticking to your guns. Just be a solid guy, right?
Like be a grounded, solid person.
Yeah. No BS. No,
straightforward.
Don't be wishy-washy type of thing. Having that integrity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pushing yourself to limits and beyond. Don't be lazy.
Yeah.
That's what it drilled into my head. I mean, there have been times when I've been on courses where it's just, pissing down rain on me, and I'm just sitting in the middle of the bush on an exercise, and I'm just sitting there going, why am I here? And you think to yourself, well, why wouldn't I be here? What else would I be doing?
Yeah.
Riding a desk somewhere in some high rise downtown, some city somewhere.
Yeah.
Hating life and, listening to people. There's no shortage of people telling you what to do, type of thing. And it's just like, no, man, I'm out here and I'm hanging out with like-minded guys and embrace the suck, right? That's a term. Like
it's all over the military,
right? I mean, when you're laying on your deathbed, staring at the ceiling, sucking life through a straw, or you get a machine that's pumping their heart for you, and you're sitting there going, "What have I accomplished in my life? And what have I done?" You know what I mean?
You start to reflect. There's either going to be some there likely will be some regret, but there's also going to be like, no, I did some of that shit. I did this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I could die tomorrow, and as I'm on my way out, I could have a big smile on my face saying, man, I did a lot of really cool stuff in my time, right? Like I did some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
No regrets.
What was it? Was there a particular operation or like an instance, a mission where that situation stood out the most to you?
Not one in particular. Everything was mission specific. We had different, and again, like I said, in the military, in the airborne, we weren't really called out to a lot of missions. We ended up doing aid to the civil power, even in Canada, like when they had the big uprise between the natives, the First Nations guys, and what that. I mean, we saw more action in Canada,
in Quebec.
Yeah. Stuff like that. When I was in, there wasn't really a whole lot of. We were on standby to go full out, but it was just that we were always pulled back. It was more after I left the military and get into more like security contracting. That's when things really started to. When I saw stuff like that. When I went to Israel and I was trained over there to be a bodyguard and get into, contract security work and whatever. But as I said, the military was. being in Cyprus was interesting. We were shot at over there. I mean, but again, the rules of engagement were completely different. But as far as massive operations, overseas operations, we didn't see much of it. It wasn't until Somalia happened, and that's when it really got ugly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have any crazy stories about, us coming under heavy fire in different places, but it wasn't until after the fact. That's when things really started.
It's funny when you hear about some police officers who go through their entire career and never drawing their weapon. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of them, that is a serious point of pride because they never had to engage in a situation mm-hmm. where it escalated to that point.
Right.
So sometimes it can be kind of like a feather in your cap in that regard.
Right.
But also with the level of training that you guys received, it's also kind of like a little bit of a kick in the pants because this whole time you're trained up for this and then nothing happens and then it's disbanded and taken away. Now I got to go and search for these specific skill sets and being able to execute on these skills. And now I got to go look for it somewhere else because, the thing that I thought it was going to provide for, it's not.
No. And that's the thing. A lot of people have this preconceived notion that I've been in multiple battles and wars. It's not true. I mean, I was in 5 years. I wasn't a career guy. Yeah. And I wasn't because I saw where the military was going. When I get in, I mean, I was shocked that they even needed more soldiers because the fact that there really wasn't a whole lot going on. Yeah. It wasn't until Somalia. I mean, there had been other things going on, like the Golan Heights and things like that. But again, a lot of it was peacekeeping, UN peacekeeping. And when I got into the military, I was very naive to how it all worked until I ended up getting to the Royal Canadian Regiment, to the 1st Battalion, to the unit in London. And then I would find out that certain people were in different, the Congo, or they were in the Golan or what have you. And I would find this out after the fact, like after they had returned. I'm like, well, I don't know who you are. Oh, I was just stationed in the Golan for the last, 6 months or whatever. I'm like, this is when I was fresh, like an FNG mm-hmm. to the unit, yep. Right? So, but the preparation for everything was awesome. I mean, the training was incredible. But even in the training, some of the things in the training were like insane. Like the stuff that we were doing in training sometimes I wonder if I was even going to come out of it alive. Just the training itself.
Just the training.
Oh yeah. Some of the conditions and the harsh conditions that we were in, Canada, like during the winter, northern portion, northern Ontario, or out here out west, like if you're doing mountain ops or something like that, like you gotta understand, like it's minus 30 and you're climbing the side of a mountain with a pack and everything, and you're just wondering, am I gonna fall? Like, it's so it was pretty crazy. It was a lot of it was a blur. It really was. It was a blur. I think back now. But again, I did try to get back in the military to do that. And then they said that there was going to be, subliminally, they were telling me that there was going to be a change, a major paradigm shift in the combat arms portion of the Canadian military.
Which ended up being a shutdown.
And exactly. So,
and shortly after that, they actually started decommissioning Air Force bases, and it just became a huge budgetary thing across the board.
Yeah, it's true.
My dad was in the military, and he was stationed at CFB Comox, and then took a posting at CFB Edmonton in 89, and then in 91 is when they started decommissioning Air Force bases. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Edmonton was on the list, which was too bad because it had the longest runway in Canada to land the shuttle if it was an emergency. So that one got shut down, and then it just went to like civilian contract. Yeah,
it really started to deteriorate when I had joined, and again, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So when I say deteriorate, I'm talking about the I guess the necessity to have a Canadian military, right? But I didn't have anything to compare it to previous to that. So, had I been in 4 or 5 years prior to that, I'd say, okay, oh yeah, you can see the deterioration of the Canadian military.
Yeah.
When I came into it in '88, this is what I knew. This was the standard of the military, and this was the direction of the military. But then over the years, I just saw it like, oh man, like this is really like, I alluded to this earlier. I just saw it starting to deteriorate. In fact, when we were on a jump course in Edmonton, I remember one of the training, he was a master corporal. We were supposed to do this, 500-meter leopard crawl or what have you. And we would do 10K run in the morning, 10K run in the afternoon. This is for the 2 weeks that we were on our jump course. And I remember one of the master corporals, he stood there lecturing us about how the human rights thing was kicking in and how we were to be treated by the NCOs. Like they weren't supposed to yell and scream and call us names and what have you. Not that would affect any of us because we're a bunch of infantry guys. So you would think that by default that we'd be ready for being like the idea is if we're ready to be dodging bullets and being hated by the enemy, I think being called a lazy plug and a piece of trash,
sticks and stones
by a trainer, right, wouldn't be really something that you want to put a complaint in for, or whatever. But he did mention that. He goes, now with this new human rights thing going on, and now we're all looking at each other, going, "What's he talking about?" And they're like, yeah, human rights, we're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to say that. And we're all like of the same opinion, like, don't worry about it, Master Corporal. It's okay. Like if you want to scream and yell and give us a few kicks or whatever for not doing our job properly, let us know. Yeah. That's why we're here. Not necessarily to get screamed and reamed out, but you're not going to handle us with kid gloves is what we're getting at. We are wanting to be paratroopers. And if we're going to do a 500-meter leopard crawl, then we're doing a 500-meter leopard crawl. Yeah. And we're going to get splinters and we're going to get kicked around and we're going to get scratched up because that's what we signed up for. Yeah. It was at that moment when I realized that, okay, wow, like this is really something. This is a thing. And then we just saw it getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And very depressing. And then the funding disappeared and canceling the jumps and canceling courses, and the attrition level was just skyrocketing. And I mean, I contributed to that. And in retrospect, I do have some regret, but in other ways I don't, because, had I stayed in and had the Somali issue occurred, it's either I went to another unit or I remustered into another trade, which a lot of guys did, by the way. Yeah. They ended up, going into other trades within the military. Some guys went Air Force or Navy or whatever, and they wanted to ride a desk for, the remaining 15 years of their career or whatever. Exactly. Yeah. And or fixing, aircraft and then leaving, pensioning out, doing their 20 years, 25 years, and then getting into the civilian market and working on, in the private sector, working on aircraft and what have you. Whatever. I mean, that's, everybody had a goal. Yeah. My goal basically was, I didn't know what my goal was, to be honest. I left the military and I ended up moving out to Alberta right away. And I literally was staring at the wall, and with no money, throwing spaghetti on the wall to see if it was ready cooked without any spaghetti sauce to eat it with. This is it.
So when you finished with the military career, moved to Alberta, what did you transition to after that?
Well, I was playing in a band. I'm a drummer. I was playing in a band for a while. And that's just it. I didn't really have, what are my skill sets? My skill sets are, I come out of high school and now I'm an infantry. Well, there's not really a lot of work for ex-infantry guys. Yeah. A lot of people say, well, you're a shoo-in for the police force. Yeah. I didn't even apply for the police force. I didn't even try, because I didn't believe in that. I didn't believe, I had heard that people had done that successfully. But I was very skeptical about that. So I actually didn't even try to apply for the police force. I had spoken to quite a few cops that I had met when I first moved to Calgary. I was teaching their kids Taekwondo. Mm-hmm. And we got along very well because, you know, we share in that sort of authoritarian, you know, police military sort of, you know, similarity type of thing. It's similar in one way and vastly different in others, obviously. But when they say, well, you should join, you know, you should try to become a cop, you know, you ex-military, and someone would say that's a fallacy. That's not true. Like, you still have to go through all this, you know, background checks and all these things and to become a cop, and they just play this mental game with you. And I'm like, look, I've had enough of the mental games because I already did all that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I'm going to go through, you know, 6 months of police training, whatever, you're going to see if I'm going to crack or there's holes in my stuff. Like I just came from a commando unit there, guy, like training with some of the most hardcore mofos out there. Yeah. You know, doing some of the most hardcore stuff. I don't think your 6 months of recruit training and you playing games with me in the police force is going to prove something. Are you trying to prove it to me, or are you trying to prove it to yourself? Yeah. So I just didn't play the game, you know. So I stuck with, you know, teaching martial arts again and opening up a business. Yeah. And very successful and grew huge. Yeah. So that was sort of where I went with it.
Because you've been teaching Taekwondo for like what?
Since 1993. So shortly after I left the military. Yeah. I was training with a guy out in Airdrie. He had 2 locations, one in Calgary, one in Airdrie. And I got up to the black belt. This is my second time around getting the black belt. Because when I left Nova Scotia, I was a black belt, and then I ended up joining the military, left the military, started Taekwondo all over again, and got up to black belt again. So it's not that they didn't recognize my first one. They just, that was a personal thing on my account. I wanted to go through the training again, so I did. And and then I opened up a club in Calgary, and it just went from there. Just it went.
Yeah. It's just, I've been to your school before, and it was just always packed with families and kids. And it's great to see that sense of community and almost that sense of brotherhood and teamwork is something that's maintained with a military career, as well as being in the martial arts community. So, I guess, when did you start training Taekwondo the first time around? Because obviously being younger.
I started back in like 1983, 84. Yeah. A few years before I joined the military.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got your black belt in what, 80?
Just 88, just 88, before I joined the military.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Like a five-ish year program is pretty typical. Yeah. And then you ran your school in Calgary and Airdrie for, coming up on what, 30 years now?
Well, yeah, I'm actually onto my third club, my third martial art club. When I first started teaching Taekwondo in Calgary, it was called Tempest Taekwondo and then Tempest Martial Arts.
I remember Tempest.
Yeah, because I ended up not dabbling, but I started getting heavy into other martial arts like jiu-jitsu, Kali, Arnis, stick fighting, what have you. So I was offering more than just Taekwondo training, so I had to change the name logically from the Taekwondo to martial arts. And then I ended up, I was married, I got married, and I ended up segueing into law enforcement with the Alberta Sheriff's Department. So I did ultimately get into law enforcement, but on my terms type of thing. And so I was with the Alberta Solicitor General, Alberta Justice. I was working as a corrections officer part-time at the Calgary Remand Center. And then some of my students, believe it or not, it's funny how some of my students are in all these places where I work. A couple of them joined my club. They were training Taekwondo with me, and they were corrections people themselves. And they were like, "Hey, you know what? There's a opening coming up, or some openings coming up for the Alberta Sheriffs. You should try it. You should apply." So I did. Yeah. And I got on with the sheriffs, but I ended up giving my martial art club away to a guy, and it just fizzled out. He just didn't upkeep it, keep it going. And then I was with the Alberta Sheriffs for about 6 years. Again, watching the deterioration of, things happen. And it was like, I'm going to make it clear, like a lot of the guys I worked with were great guys within the Sheriff's Department. But I always looked at myself as an overachiever or just a high achiever. Let's say that.
Yeah.
High achiever, not overachieving.
Well, being a part of an elite commando unit, you have higher expectations of performance.
Right. So you always want to try to aim for the highest that you can possibly get, and you're gonna make every effort to get there. I just found that working for the provincial government at that time in the sheriff's branch, there was a lot of rein pulling. They're pulling the reins. You're like, well, don't get too cocky or don't get too, ambitious or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I had noticed, and I mean, I'll say it, but I mean, there was a lot of people in that organization that, in my opinion, had no business being in the positions of authority that they were. They just had no business. Not at all.
Yeah.
Some of them should have, some of them were previous law enforcement officers, cops, prior to becoming, the higher up guys in the management or the upper brass, the upper echelon of and they should have just retired from the police force and not get involved after that with becoming, the administration or the management, because they just, as far as I'm concerned, they were just substandard, and it really reflected on how things were operating.
Downstream.
Yeah, exactly. And so after 6 years of that, and just again watching things just falling apart, I just said I had enough of that.
Yeah. So I remember you leaving.
Pardon me?
I remember you leaving. I remember you going through the training, and you're saying like, "This is so easy. It's laughable." They're yelling at us and spraying us with pepper spray, and it's a walk in the park. Yeah. Like, this is the easiest obstacle course. I could have made this with a 5-year-old. Yeah. So yeah. So it once again, but I mean, I'll jump through the hoops and whatever I have to go and jump through, but I was promised all kinds of interesting things, like all great, you're going to be on a TAC team because they're going to turn the sheriffs into a provincial police force, because the then Solicitor General Harvey Seneko, he had this massive initiative that he was going to create a provincial police force under the Ralph Klein government at the time. And when I was going through the recruit training at the Alberta Justice Staff College, they said that, you're either going to be on a TAC team, or you're going to be a firearms instructor, or you're going to be one of the trainers at the big recruit training center that they're going to build in Fort Macleod. Yep. All of that fell through. Like literally the whole thing, it all just disintegrated, and that $300 million training facility in Fort Macleod wasn't going to happen anymore. Didn't even break ground.
And then the provincial government apparently got sued. And that's when Ed Stelmach became the premier, and things just fell apart from there. And I said, I played this game before. I saw this before. In the military. So I was like, I'm not going to what's the term?
Subject yourself.
Yeah, like exactly. I'm not just going to roll with this. Like, this is crazy. If I want to aim higher, you need the tools and you need that support to get there. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't exist, then you're going to stay here. Until further notice. Up, you can forget it. Right. This is where you're going to stay. And I just thought to myself, with my background and everything, there's got to be more to it than this. So it was either going to be, I aim higher. And somehow get there with the unit that I'm in, the organization. And if it doesn't want to help, then I'm just leaving. And I'll make my own opportunities. And in retrospect, I'm glad I did what I did. I am. Because
create your own opportunity or live in stagnation.
100%. And I'm happier now. My life is far more flexible than it ever would be had I stayed with this organization. But I'm not suggesting that anybody who wants to be in law enforcement to think twice. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that anybody that wants to join the military to also, think about it for. Take a week and really, think about it before you. But right now, anybody that would join the Canadian Armed Forces, as far as I'm concerned, under the current government, you're wasting your time. It's falling apart.
Yeah.
It's worse now. It's worse now than it's ever been. It's worse now than it was when I left.
Oh, the recruiting numbers are your guiding light on, that success.
That's
It's
right.
not successful at all.
No.
They have the lowest recruiting numbers. They're screaming for anybody. They'll take kids at this point.
That's right.
So,
Well, the attrition level is just huge.
Yeah.
Like they've
Guys
never
are walking
lost so
away.
many people.
Yeah.
Lately, since a certain individual took government 10 years ago.
They're trying to pull the cadets in. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So very dangerous. Once that happens, that means then the standards decrease and the risks increase. And so I'm happy with where I am now.
Yeah. Because you're teaching, I guess, full time. And other than that, what are you doing now for keeping busy? Because your school runs mostly at night to make it convenient for kids and families to come.
Yeah. Well, the odd time I will get. I was doing some security contracting with a local company in Alberta, but I'm no longer connected to them at all, just for personal reasons. But that's a whole different ball of wax. I was actively pursuing more security contracting over the years. Like I'd done some years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, closer to 20 years ago now, some after the military. I was trained, as I said, I was trained in Israel. While I was over there, I did some work in certain countries doing certain things and looking after certain people and assets and things like that. I don't go into detail about that because there's certain you have to sign certain documents to say who are you allowed to, names you're allowed to bring up. So but anyway, things like that. I have friends of mine who I still stay in contact with, who put my name into other companies to look after other assets, like in the oil and gas, pipelines and things like that. So, my position currently allows me to do that. My position allows me to take time off, even from teaching, because I have other black belt staff that'll fill in for me while I'm gone, and I could be gone for 2 weeks, a month, type of thing, and do contract work, security contract work for that. But as far as the overseas stuff, I haven't done that quite a long time. Yeah. It's just everybody and their dog can do it, and they're basically sourcing out those jobs now to people who will take a fraction of what North American contractors will take, or British contractors or South African contractors. You get the guys from some of the other continents. They will literally work for like $150 a day. That's a gold mine for them, because their cost of living in their countries is so low that $150 a day would be the equivalent of us making $1,500.
Which typically is the going rate per day for some contractors.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So as long as they have a body and boots, and they sort of kind of know their way around a firearm, there you go. You're hired, right? For peanuts. And it's almost like these guys are being subsidized somewhere else somehow. I don't know how, but these big, massive oil and gas companies, or these diamond mine companies that are worth billions of dollars, will just hire the lowest bidder kind of guys. So a lot of contractors, or former contractors like myself, we're basically we're out of work. We're not.
Doesn't sound like it's necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's not, because with that becomes lower safety standards and what have you. I've read a lot of books about guys that were in Afghanistan, Iraq, Congo, different parts of the world that were having issues with insurgents and what have you, and a a lot of these guys they would never do it again, just because the safety standards aren't there, the pay isn't there. It's the risk analysis is being done, and they're just saying it's not worth it anymore. So I read a lot of books from previous contractor guys that I'm familiar with, and to apply that now you wouldn't see the same guys do that again, based on just the way things are operating in the world now.
It's so different.
It's insane.
Now.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
then with teaching a lot of kids and families in martial arts, what are some like fundamentals and like just some basics that you try to teach, especially the younger boys and the teenage boys that are kind of coming through and learning martial arts? Because I mean, naturally, boys like to fight. That's just something that we've grown up with, as being a young man or a young boy. And, we want to get scrappy, and we want to play guns, do all these things that, that boys do. But then to direct some of that energy and to like structure it, what are some fundamentals that you teach some of these young kids to develop?
Well, what I've noticed, and as I said before, like I had 3 different martial art organizations. So I started with Tempest Taekwondo / martial arts, and I went to Destiny Martial Arts. And now I'm with Inspire Martial Arts. So it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of funny how it went from the first name Taekwondo to that same first name now Martial Arts, because I'm also teaching kickboxing, Muay Thai, and with the current club. What I've noticed, we want to go back to the Tempest era, and that's like early 90s, there is literally a complete dichotomy between the attitude of young boys, teenage boys, then and now. It's very strange to see. Back then, the younger men, if you want to call them that, they had the fire in their eyes. They had that desire to get busy, to get bloody. If it, my job was to instill that pride and that ability to push themselves to be the best they can, to provide them, show them the best and the most potential that they have. But on the same side, having that, the calm demeanor about them, and having that, that how can I say it? To have that balance, right?
Confidence, but with discipline.
That's right.
Yeah.
To have the confidence, but also to have that, compassionate side to them, which gave them that ability to understand, it's go time, and now it's, you don't see that anymore. I don't. I'm not seeing that much more in the young men nowadays. I'm seeing they are very, I don't want to use the word, I will use it, but I don't like using it, but very almost, they're cucks. They're very
passive.
Unbelievable. And they're very reserved. And, back when I used to teach decades ago, you can get in there and give them a shove, and you can give them a little hit in the belly, and they would sit there and take it, and, yes, sir, and whatever. Nowadays, because I've done it, and nowadays I'm giving them, and they're just kind of like cowarding, and they're like, oh, and I'm wondering, well, where's that coming from? Like, where does that come from? Like I don't, it's very foreign to me. A lot of them, they can't take a hit. They can't take the, and I don't want to use the term verbal abuse, but they can't take that authoritarian, more push-ups, more, no, I want more. They can't, they collapse. It's like they cowered. They just become very reserved, and it's almost like you see fear in their eyes. And I'm like, where's this coming from? That's very foreign. I've never seen anything like that. So I may have, and I've been told that I have, definitely a very unorthodox way of teaching. And when I first heard that, it's not that I took it personal. I just had to sort of sit down and take a step back and kind of reflect on what they meant by that. Some may consider that I was too harsh, that I was too militant. Some say that, no, that's exactly what my kid needs, not just my son, but my daughter as well.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want her to be a victim of, you know, I'll say it, rape or, you know, being kidnapped or what have you, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden now she becomes a statistic.
Yeah.
So some of the parents, not a lot, but some of the parents, they agree with the way I teach because they're like, well, we're mom and dad. We can't get that through their heads, but you're an outside source. So we're going to send them to you and you're going to get it into their heads. So a lot of the parents now realize the way I teach and like, okay, like this is it can be very militant. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. This is martial art training. Yeah. Right. Martial. Right. The word martial is like, it's discipline, you know, but the other side was the artistic form of discipline, if that's what you want to call it that.
Artistic form of discipline, movement, like the creative understanding about defending yourself martially.
Yes, yeah, it's like having it's martial discipline. It's you know, never second guessing yourself and pushing forward and through adversity and what have you. And so I have you say, sure, maybe I do have an unorthodox way of teaching, but I mix it together where the recipe for that comes from, yes, my military background, but also the way I was taught martial arts before I was even in the military. Not to mention that I grew up on a farm. Yeah.
So there's a sense of, there's a sense of work ethic and
well, dedication. You have to be dedicated to what you do.
Yeah.
You have to have the work ethic. You can't slack off, right? That farm or that ranch or whatever it is depends on you and the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
Right. When you're in the heat of battle, the decisions that you make will depend on the difference between winning or losing. Right. Same idea. The military is the same idea. Right. This is why there's structure. That's why there's that discipline, because over time, you realize like, well, I'm a part of an engine. And if my part doesn't work, that engine doesn't work. And that's how it is. So yeah, I took that forward into the martial arts. I did. I think maybe in my older years now, I've kind of sort of mellowed out a bit,
lightened up a bit. Yeah.
But I never deviate from the objective and the goal of teaching martial arts is that it is still martial arts, no matter what is happening in society. And I lecture them in that regard too, not just from the physical side of things, but I also like, you know, defend yourself and stick up for yourself and, you know,
stick up for others.
Yeah, that's right. Take pride in what you do. Exactly. You know, be a part of society. Don't be a drain on society.
Yeah.
You know, do well in school. Respect your parents. You may not like what they say, but it's part of being in the family.
Yeah.
Right. When you leave the nest, then you can decide from there. But hopefully, we've provided you the tools.
Yeah.
To do that.
Enough structure and value to give you the skill set to make right decisions.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer the question, you know, that's what I do with the younger, you know, men and the girls too, but the young boys in the class. And I think a lot of them are still there. They're still training with me, not just because of the training itself, but I think a lot of it is because the parents, especially the fathers, are telling them, like, you need to go. This guy's like, he's going to drill it into your head because I'm your dad. I knew you since you were born. You're probably not going to take me as serious as this guy over here. So that's why they put them in my club. And
it's kind of a funny thing, because it's not even necessarily a cultural thing. Is you're, as a kid, you're less likely to want to listen to your parents. And then you're going to have some random third party, non-biased person tell you the exact same thing, but you're going to listen to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I've always found that to be a very interesting duality of, you know, what we immerse ourselves into.
That's right.
But it is necessary at the same time, which not only provides you opportunity to teach kids and have a really great job with flexibility, but also to inspire them to be to be better and to build that structure that they'll get different type of structure at home, but then they get that this is a no bullshit structure, and we're going to build some skills and foundation for creating just, overall through the combination of different places and efforts, a well-rounded human being instead of just being a freaking slug and a lazy bum.
Well, that's the ultimate goal. I mean, with the way society is nowadays, with, and we've talked about this, we spoke about it again this morning in breakfast, is society is just poisoned the minds of these young people coming up, too many video games. And I mean, I can ramble on about that because you hear it everywhere. Playing too many video games. There's too much gaming going on. Well, it's true. It's true. And it's true. It's more true now than anything. I mean, the young boys that are going through, young girls are doing it, but we have full grown men that are doing it nowadays. And the divorce rates are going up because their priorities are gaming, and they somehow at 45 years old, they think that they're going to be the next best thing in the gaming industry. And like, well, how do you figure that at 45? You're basically going to be pensioning out here pretty quick. Like, I don't understand. I mean, there are men losing their jobs because they can't get out of bed because they're gaming until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and they have to be at work at 7. And you're hearing I hear these stories, and I'm like, so how do you pay your bills playing Call of Duty or whatever? And I mean, I don't game.
3 a.m.
I don't game, so I don't know the names of these things anymore.
No, that's one of them.
And I don't even catch. I won't even bother to understand how they do it. When Xbox came out, the first Xbox, when it came out, I bought one because I wanted to know what all the hype was. But I also knew that I had to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, because I had to go and I had a business. I was, and I was never late for teaching, and I was never, everything was done exactly how I wanted my business to run. So I went and bought an Xbox, and I was playing the game, and I was enjoying it, but I was not addicted to it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm the old school stand-up video games at an arcade, right?
Yeah.
You're throwing a quarter in.
Pac-Man and Galaga and all those good ones. Yeah,
that's right. So, but I played the Xbox, and I was like, oh, that's cute. And then I handed it over to my sons, and they played it, and then they went and bought the upgrade, and well, the rest is history. But they eventually, phased out of it. I mean, none of them, they're not a bunch of hardcore gamers. These guys they work hard at what they do. Like they're, one's 36, the other ones are 26 and 24. They're not online gamers. And the reason why they're not is because I have told them over the years, you're not going to go anywhere if all you're going to do is play video games.
Yeah.
Like if you plan on having a family, which my oldest one does, if you plan on having a career, if you plan on owning a house, if you plan on, you're going to have to wean yourself off of these video games. How you do that is completely up to you as full grown men. I've already told you how to do it. All you do is you basically walk away from it, or you sell the unit and get to work.
Yeah. Because
the rest of the world is moving, and they don't care about a bunch of gamers. Now, granted, I know there's guys out there that love the game, and they say, well, this is how I'm going to make my living. And, that's fine. You are going to be 0.00000000001% of the population that is going to be successful at doing that.
It's extremely small.
So good luck, And while you're dreaming, the world is still revolving. It's still turning, and time is not going to stop for you.
Yeah.
And by the time you realize it, life is that phase of your life, it surpassed you, and you missed out on a lot of opportunity. Like that was your sweet spot between this age and this age. And if you did nothing, good luck. I mean, they're hiring, 15, 16-year-old kids now to do coding. They're not going to hire some 45, 50-year-old.
Yeah.
They're not doing it.
Yeah.
So if you're wasting 20 years of your life playing games, and it got you nowhere, now you want to come back into the workforce somehow, who's going to hire you? What did you do? What's your claim to fame? What's on your resume? Oh, I played Call of Duty for 20 years. Oh, yeah. But what's your claim to fame? Well, I just told you. Well, that's no claim to fame, buddy. What skills did that
get you?
Yeah, my kid played that.
Yeah.
What does he do now? Well, he's a fourth year, journeyman mechanic or whatever. Yeah, he makes 175, 180 grand a year. What do you do at 45? collect food stamps.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How often do we see that? We're seeing more of that now.
Yeah. And that's where structure and discipline and community, you wonder why so many men are trying to find their way back to that with no guidance. And yet there's still all these communities that exist out there. You know, you've got a martial arts community, you've got churches, you've got, you know, a variety of different groups that you can get involved in to recreate some baseline and structure to your life.
That's right.
And there's not enough out there. I know there's a lot out there. I don't think that there's enough drive to get involved with them, because, you know, video games is easy. Video games is easy. You just push a button, turn it on. You can die 10,000 times. It won't matter. You can just keep trying over and over again. But if you take that same thought pattern and put it towards something constructive, yeah, you could actually make something.
Yeah.
Do something with your time in your life. And that's, yeah, it's unfortunate. But there's a small shift here and there. And, you know, maybe this podcast can be of influence to shifting in those directions and looking for people that are like involved in things. And, you know, for people that have never joined a Taekwondo club or gotten into martial arts, they, you know, just get out there and try something different instead of just doing the wash, rinse, repeat of things that go nowhere. Like,
yeah.
So, oh yeah. What do you think in terms of, because, you know, you've had a pretty colorful career and life, everything from traveling to a whole bunch of different things that are considered to be pretty manly kinds of jobs, or predominantly driven behind with men being, you know, at the forefront of these different careers. What do you think is missing in men today that should be there, but obviously isn't? Because we see a lot of different things nowadays, and you kind of talked a little bit about like this fearful passivity beta type of person. But what do you think is really missing in men today that could the world use more of?
Purpose.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what happened in our society.
Direction.
For society to deteriorate as much as it has, but building things, having a purpose, right? Like being the man in the family unit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the men were the pillar of society. We invented things, we build things, we create things. You know, men were the ones that were to take the brunt of everything that was coming at them, to be the protector,
mm-hmm.
which is part of the purpose. Right? I'm not going to get into, you know, the gender differences of, you know, the weaker female, because this is not necessarily true. There's a lot of strong females out there. I mean, I'm involved with a very strong female, and she's an incredible woman. And you know, if I was to drop dead tomorrow, she'd make it. No problem. But that family unit, we have a very strong family unit. Like incredible. Like you can feel it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
She's very secure about who she is and what she's doing. So am I. We're secure as a couple. You know, she's raised, I like to think that I've helped raise her boys, to raise them up to be young men who will also have purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, and I know they will, you can see it. The way they think, the way they talk, just the way they conduct themselves, the drive that they have. Like that's not, there might be a hereditary thing, but I believe that the majority of it is environment. They are raised in an environment in our house to be, you know, to have purpose.
Good ground.
And you can see it. Like they're looking at 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. You can see it. My own sons are the same way. You can see it. They have purpose. Mm-hmm. They have ambition. You know, I have grandchildren. My oldest one I have 3 grandchildren. He's one of the best dads on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell just the way he talks about them. His life revolves around those kids. what better dad could you have than that?
Yeah.
You know, everything, that's what they want. Like, that's what they need.
Yeah.
And he loves being that awesome father.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you sleep well at night knowing that your grandchildren have a dad like that, have that father figure, that role, and he's doing well in that role. My other kids, should they decide to have kids too, I guarantee it that they'll be the same. That it's because of what I drilled into their head years ago, right? Because they saw it, and I would bring them with me, and we would travel in different places, and I would show them the impoverished areas of certain countries in the world, and they're just sitting there looking at each other like, "Woof, we got it good." And I said, "Yes, you do, but don't take advantage of it, because it can disappear that quick if you're not careful."
Just about anything can be taken away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So count your blessings and be happy with what you got. Be a high achiever. Yeah. But yeah, overall have a purpose in your life, you know, and and try to be that good influence towards other people.
Yeah.
You know, and find your tribe of like-minded guys.
Yeah.
Right, who have like-minded families, because there's strength in that. That's where the strength is.
Yeah.
Right, having that, finding your crew, your tribe, massive. You know, and I've done that. I have a list of all my friends.
Yeah,
you know, you're included in that list, obviously. You know, and yeah, man. And
the last question I was going to ask was if there was a message that you could give to, you know, the younger generation, the younger men out there. That what would that one message be? But I think you fucking nailed that. That literally was solid. Yeah. So yeah. We need more of that, more structure. Like, I think what you're doing with the martial arts community is so important, especially for these, you know, younger boys that are, you know, they're trying to figure their lives out and their place in the world, and having some measure of guiding light is so important. Just that guidance alone. And you've done it for 30 years, and you've seen the importance and the value. And so, you know, as a former student of yours, I respect and appreciate and love what you do. And I've seen it firsthand, and I love it. And I wish more people got involved in that, because the structure it works on so many levels, not just learning how to defend yourself with it, which is another, you know, that's a protective thing that men have towards the ones that they care about, but then also, all the other structures that martial arts community has brought. And yeah, there's something to be said about that. And I think that's the best way to end the conversation today. It was a solid answer. So yeah, I appreciate you being for my first guest, the official inaugural launch, and more to come, I'm sure. And maybe down the road when we get the ball rolling more, I'm gonna have you back and tell some more wild fucking stories.
Absolutely, man.
I would love that.
More than happy to. Yeah.
I thank you for your time and for your honesty, and yeah, we'll do it again.
Sounds good.
I love it. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
First one in the bag. I think what I'm gonna